Okay, so question for everybody. How did you get involved with The Last Ronin?
Well, for me, Ben Bishop, I was doing a book with Kevin Eastman already called Drawing Blood, which is kind of the fictional true story of how the Turtles were created. But instead of Kevin Eastman, it's this guy Shane Bookman. Instead of creating the Turtles, it's the radically rearranged Ronin Ragdolls, Samurai Cats named after famous anime directors. And so we're like deep into volume 2 of that, and I was deep into volume 2 of my own book, and things were happening in the world. COVID was happening, pandemic was happening, and Ronin needed an assist, and I made a joke. I was like, oh, well, let me know if you need any help. I'd love to be a part of it. And then that's kind of where the idea of the flashback being a different artist came from, and I was brought in to take some of the load off of the current artist at the time, Andy Kuhn, and just do the flashbacks, which are the scenes I would love to do anyway. And so I was like, holy cow, that's amazing. What an honor. And that's basically how I got involved, and then that later turned into the Escorzas taking the other half of the story. But they can tell you that story.
Okay, I'm Tom Waltz. So the way I got involved was I've been a long-time writer for the Turtle series at IDW, and I had written the first 100 issues of the series, and I knew that at issue 100 I was going to step away from the book, and Sophie Campbell was going to take over the writing duties. And so, and Kevin worked with us on that book and still continues to work on the series. And so one day we were at his house, and he goes, hey, what are you planning on doing after you finish issue 100? And I said, I really don't know. I'd like to still do Turtles work. I'm not sure what the plan is at IDW. And he said, you know what, I got this old outline that Peter Laird and I wrote in 1987. He goes, I've kind of renamed it we called it the Last Turtle, but he goes, I renamed it The Last Ronin. He said, but you want to check it out? Maybe there's something in this. Maybe there's something here. And Kevin's like a master archivist. If you go to his house, he's kept everything over the years. He pulls this outline out, and I read it right away, and I knew, we got to do this story. The joke is that we got to make it more futuristic because they wrote it in '87, and all the future stuff was current technology. So we got to change some things. I said, but the foundation for a great story is here. Let's take this thing and adapt it and make it our own, in a way, but make sure that everything that Peter brought to this is included. And he said, okay, let's go for it. So we went to IDW and we went to Nickelodeon and said, hey, we've got this idea for kind of a darker, more adult turtle story about the last turtle. We showed them the outline, and they said, okay, it's a little risky, but let's try it. Let's see how it goes. And from there, the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah. Pues nosotros tuvimos una suerte increíble. Kevin estuvo en México, no recuerdo si en 2019 o 2018. Lo conocimos en una convención. Nos lo presentó un amigo en común, Ricardo Llarena. Y pues platicamos con él lo que pudimos y le obsequiamos un par de dibujos. Y pues Courtney, su esposa, cuando buscaban dibujante y parece que no lo encontraban, porque Andy Kuhn ya no pudo seguir en el proyecto, pues buscaron un dibujante acá, un dibujante allá, y de pronto Courtney le dijo, oye, ¿por qué no llamas a los muchachos que nos regalaron estos dibujos? Y pues nos contactaron, y de pronto nos dicen, oye, ¿podrían trabajar en las tortugas? Sin saber qué tortuga. Pensábamos cualquier proyecto de tortugas. No imaginábamos que fuera una tortuga tan importante y futurista, donde participa Kevin, donde Peter Laird tuvo participación. No, pensábamos, solo es un proyecto más de tortugas, pero de inmediato dijimos, claro que sí, o sea, hay que dibujar tortugas. Desde el día de ayer yo soy una tortuga. Entonces, de inmediato dijimos que sí, y como por fortuna somos dos, pues pudimos cumplir con la velocidad que se requería en ese momento.
issues, and both of them work together.
Bueno, pues mi historia es la misma.
It's the same story, we're brothers.
Que la de él nos tomó por sorpresa,
It
no
was a complete
teníamos
surprise.
trabajo,
We were out of,
no había
we were not
proyectos en ese
working right
momento.
now.
Habíamos estado
At the
tocando
moment.
puerta
We had
en
no
heavy metal,
projects.
pero decían,
We
no,
were
no se
trying to
necesita
do something
nada.
for heavy metal, but heavy metal was
Así
not
que cuando
actually running
dijeron,
anything. So when they said,
ahí pueden trabajar en
"You
las
have the chance
tortugas,
for a game with
pero
Turtles."
claro que sí.
Yes, of
Me hubieran
course,
ofrecido
we're in.
lo que fuera, hubiera hecho
Whatever
que
they
sí.
have offered me at that moment, I have said yes.
Pero jamás nos
But I've never
imaginamos que era un
assumed
proyecto
something
tan
like this, something
importante.
as big as
Nos
this.
fuimos enterando a medida que lo
We actually
estábamos
realized what we're doing after
trabajando.
we started,
Y pues el resto
after the
es
first
historia,
pages, and then
como
we're here
dice Tom.
with the full team, like Tom mentioned.
Great. Now, so for you guys, what was it like to, obviously the Turtles were a big part of y'all's life, but, also writing something very grim and dark, and was that something you all were really excited to take this into a much more adult-oriented thing, or was there always that apprehension of maybe it's too dark or we went too far?
You know what? Honestly, I had written, like I said, the first 100 issues of the Turtle book that was the main ongoing series at IDW, and I never, it's funny because people will say, "Oh, the Mirage years were so gritty," and they were, and they'll say, "I wish it was still like that," and I said, probably should read our series because we did a lot of gritty things and continue to do a lot of gritty things in our main book. So there was that element, but for me, I think it was the excitement was more about, I think, dealing with the emotional aspect.
Yes.
And not that the other Turtle stories aren't emotional; they are very emotional. But this was, I think, for a futuristic story, it was really dealing with I think contemporary issues, loss and mourning. Actually, really just kind of eternal issues that humans deal with. So that for me was interesting, but also being able to do it kind of in a hyper-focused sense. When you have an ensemble cast like you do with Turtles, you've got to give everybody FaceTime, and it's got to be Raph and it's got to be Leo, and they've got to have their time. And this was kind of a way to take all of that and condense it into one character. So I think it was more focused writing in that sense, without losing those characters, because they were in his head, and even that we approached in a way that we've never made a decision. People ask us, and they go, "Are they really there? Are they ghosts? Are they in his head?" And I said, "You decide." I've never decided, even when I'm writing it. But I said one thing that was kind of was really cathartic and kind of new for me was being able to actually have them using those blades to do some damage on enemies, because we're kind of hyper vigilant about it not getting too violent in the main book, because that is a Teen Plus book, and you don't want this violence to kind of I think supersede the story itself. And then, so in this case, the violence actually is part of the story, an integral part of the story, and not in a good way. The violence is a terrible thing, and that's what we're presenting is look at, revenge leads to violence, and violence leads to death, and then what? Where are you? And that was our goal, was not shy away from the violence, but also show that there's nothing good comes from violence ever.
Yeah, it was definitely known in my brain anyway when we started that this is a different level of, whether it be called violence or action or bloodshed. We're dealing with these real depths of these real characters that I feel hit so hard because we all come with that 40 years of our own nostalgia. Oh, I love the video games. Oh, I love the toys. And you pick up Last Ronin, it doesn't matter if you've read any of the IDW, any of the Mirage, you know who the 4 Turtles are, you know who Casey is. And so those are going to be big feelings when they go down. And so I know that when I got to do, obviously, the first death, First to Fall, issue 2, Raphael, I was pushing the violence hard. I was pushing the bloodshed. I was pushing his rage. I used to say in the Raphael macro series that Kevin and I did, Target R, it's the maddest you've ever seen Raph. His eyes literally turned red, and I wanted to top that with this so that we could say, yeah, we're not messing around. Stay tuned for issue 3 and 4 and 5. It's only going to not necessarily get ramped up, because the Donnie and Splinter stuff isn't as fists and blood and blades as Raph might be, but they hit in that same way. And we wanted to make sure, I wanted to make sure that it was worthy of the death, and it wasn't just a few panels where they're click-clacking some weapons around. No, Raph, he thinks Splinter is dead, and he's going to wipe every foot off the face of the planet. So.
Now, kind of piggybacking off that, is there any ideas that were maybe too dark or they were like, okay, maybe that's like a little bit too far.
I only had a couple edits artistically, and it was like a sigh sticking out of someone's back. They didn't want to see the exit of the sigh, but they let me put Raph's fist in the guy's stomach, and you can assume the rest of the sigh came out. But other than that,
and it's one thing that's interesting is that has evolved as far as like what is allowed and isn't allowed. So there were some things that we did in Lost Years and Lost Day that might not have been approved in Last Ronin, because Last Ronin was the first time really we were trying something like this, and we weren't sure how fans would react. We weren't sure how the public would react. And then, what we realized was fans got it, and it wasn't like they weren't out there celebrating that violence. What they were saying is, it wasn't like, how cool is it that this happened? It was, how sad that this happened, how bad that this happened. So when we got to Lost Years, we wrote a few scenes where you start to see Mikey become this violent, vengeful character, and I didn't want to shy away from it because I wanted people to look at it and not go cool. I wanted them to say, "Oh my God, that's Mikey, and this is not good. This is he's spiraling out of control out here, and he's caught up in this cycle of violence." And so I think what happened was the fans, and God bless the fans, they proved to Nickelodeon and IDW that they understood what the story we were trying to tell here. They were getting the message, and so we shouldn't shy away from that message, because that was the thing that was connecting with people, was like, this isn't celebrating violence. It was the exact opposite.
It's like, look what it all leads to. How terrible.
Yeah, and that's definitely the sense that I get. It's not glorifying it. It's really, I mean, especially like somebody like myself that grew up on the cartoons and then the games and then the comics and stuff. It's like seeing what that sort of transforms you into. I think is such a tragic.
Vengeance is just it's a terrible path to follow, because there's no good end to vengeance. And Mikey, spoilers for anybody who hasn't read it, at the end of Last Ronin, he realizes that, and he changes the message from no peace, N-O peace, to no peace, K-N-O-W peace, because he realizes as he's dying and he's leaving this world, everything, what was it for? He just ended, if there was any victory, it was hopefully this stops it, and it wasn't, it didn't glorify his father, it didn't glorify his family, it didn't change the fact that they were dead. In the end, it was just a lot of bloodshed for an age-old feud that probably people couldn't even trace back to the beginnings. And I mean, we see that in the world now, and it's sad that happens. And I think when you show it, but you show how ugly it is, and don't glorify it, then it becomes a different message, and yet you can still have it. And it is a graphic. Look, don't get me wrong. It's a graphic storytelling medium, and so it is exciting to see the fights and the battles, But I think that sometimes we lose the message in the images, and so what we wanted to do is make sure that the images represented the story we're telling. And so Ben and the Escorza brothers, and Luis with his colors, they conveyed that magnificently, because we can tell them what we want, but then it's their job to kind of make it real. And so for me, they're the true heroes of the story, because even in the images, as bloody as they are, you're still getting that message that this isn't cool, this is bad.
Yeah. And I feel like pulling those punches would almost dilute that message.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, just to take it over to you guys, I'd love to know from each one of you, like the aesthetics, how you kind of came up with the look, and just kind of like the world building and the feel of The Last Ronin.
Pues desde luego un extraño privilegio.
Something strange, privilege, but strange.
Pues participar en toda esta historia, pero siempre decimos que Kevin sentó las bases, mandó muchos diseños para las Ronin, para los ninjas, los enemigos en general, y fue, nosotros le pusimos el sello final, pero siempre tratando de respetar lo que Kevin nos presentó. Entonces al final nos enamoramos del personaje, del traje, de las armas, del universo que lo rodea. Entonces pues ya casi que lo traemos en las venas, de las muchas veces que nos ha tocado dibujarlo, y de personas que nos piden comisiones de todo esto. Cuando comenzamos a trabajar el proyecto de Last Ronin, pensábamos que era una historia más de las tortugas ninja, en las que ellas ganan al enemigo y están bromeando y chocando las palmas al final del día. Y cuando Kevin nos mandó los diseños de este futuro post-apocalíptico, sucio, todo destruido, en clases sociales totalmente separadas, la verdad es que nos gustó mucho esta versión más adulta, más comprometida de las tortugas. No es esta historia infantil, sino puede leerla efectivamente un joven, un niño, pero es una historia que va más a lo profundo. Y dibujar este mundo pues fue un gran privilegio para nosotros.
That's great. Thank you. Now, of course, the big news is, of course, the follow-up, the much anticipated re-evolution. So what, which comes out in February of 2024. And so I know a lot of that's probably under, strict sort of like secrecy, but is there anything that you can maybe share? Any like little like...
Yeah, absolutely. You know what we're going to show, I think more than anything is, it's obviously a continuation of the story. First and foremost, we have a new generation of turtles, four new turtles that are kind of taking up the mantle of the originals. But they're very inspired by the originals, but at the same time very different, and it's a very different world that they live in. Unfortunately, what they're going to find is that, I always say this, it says nature abhors a vacuum, right? And so we got rid of the bad guys, but what's happened in the city is nobody's ever really filled that vacuum. The Foot Clan had absolute control under Naruto, and so that was the life everybody knew, and that was the life they hated, and they fought against that. When Mikey came, they finally took down that regime. But what's happened is nobody was able to kind of step up in a better way to take it over. So the city's kind of been floundering. It's kind of been in this weird status quo, kind of like almost a purgatory. And now there's different elements that are rising up to say, okay, if nobody's going to take charge, we will, and not all of them have good intentions. And so that's going to kind of force our heroes out of hiding. And what it's going to do this time, though, is show that to confront the evil, to confront the bad, it's something that they don't. It's not something they want to do. It's something they have to do. It's not this age-old family feud. This is the right thing to do, but at the same time, they risk losing everything Mikey won, which was this kind of like this end to the cycle of violence. And so what we want to explore is, how do you confront evil? How do you fight without it becoming just this new cycle of lifelong enemies, arch enemies? How can we just maybe stop this, but for the good? There is a good at the end of this. How do we get there? But at the same time, dealing with the same family issues that made Turtles what they are. You got 4 teenagers. They're trying to discover who they are, and one of the things that we're really going to explore is why they are. Why did April create these 4 turtles? What was that? Was she playing God? What was the reason? And she's struggling with this. This is things that we will show in this story. That it's not just because it's cool and there's always been 4 turtles. There's reasons she did what she did, but also regrets that she may have as a result, because she's created these 4 new turtles that now find themselves in danger, just like the 4 originals. And is that her fault? Would they be in that danger if she hadn't created them? So I think we're just basically going to find a way to give new turtles to the world, a new generation of turtles with modern sensibilities, modern personalities, but never lose that family focus, but also kind of find a way to push this family maybe in a better direction than the last family was pushed.
Nice. Now, is there any plans for any movie or series adaptation of either?
Nothing. That would be a dream, and I would say that maybe that there's talk about movies. I've never heard of it personally. There is a video game coming, AAA video game coming, that was announced and the trailer was released to like. A lot of people are excited about it. I'm excited about it, and
I think that's going to help make the movie happen one day. And let's just throw it out there, manifest it.
Yeah, put it out in the universe.
Jim Henson suits, Judith Ho.
That's it. That's what we say. Yeah, we want Judith Ho to be talking about to be April, but the game itself, Kevin and I behind the scenes have been involved as far as like in the development, seeing what's happening, seeing what they plan on bringing into the game, and it's very faithful to the story, both design-wise and story-wise. Obviously, just like anything that gets adapted, they have to make tweaks just for gameplay purposes. But none of the tweaks that I've seen are drastic at all. They're actually very minor. Actually, one of the tweaks they made, I was like, oh, I wish we had wrote it that way ourselves. So it's one of those things where I'm happy to say that the general attitude, at least in other media, has been, if it's not broken, why fix it?
Yeah.
If this is what people love, then let's kind of find a way to make that into a cool video game. So I'm really excited for the game. As far as other media, you never know. But I mean, I'll say this: it's been like at light speed the way they've been. The action figures, the statues, things are coming out way faster than I ever expected. So I can only imagine there's going to be more, and hopefully, I really hope people embrace this re-evolution, the sequel, because we wouldn't put it out if we didn't feel it was worthy. I mean, we didn't have to do this. It was one of those things where they said, is there another story? And we said, we do have another story, and we think it's worthy to follow, the Last Ronin. And so I'm hoping that the excitement continues, and as the Turtles evolve, so does the fandom, and so does the Roninverse. And I think that might include other media.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's such a great book. It's amazing because, again, a lot of people like myself grew up with the comics. For me, it was the cartoons, and then the comics, and then the games. So it's like it matures with the audience, the core audience.
Well, here this is the most fascinating thing to me. Ben and I were just talking about this. So, I go to comic book stores and I'll visit and I'll talk to the retailers. And the thing that they're telling us, and they tell Kevin all the time too when he's doing signings, is you think it's like the long, old guys like me that would be, oh, this is my Turtles because I went through the fun years. Now this is my old guy years. Yeah. But what the retailers are telling us is this book, and this makes me so happy. This, I mean, more than anything else, is bringing in new fans and not old fans. Or I should say more mature fans,
right?
but a younger audience. They said that they have teens coming into the store now, seeking it out. Maybe they heard about the video game, maybe they heard about it from their friends, and every time they come into the store, they say, "Hey, you got any new, more Last Ronin stuff?" And these are kids that aren't buying Marvel or DC or any other comics. They're not traditional comic book fans or shoppers. They're specifically coming seeking out Ronin, and the retailers are saying that fascinates them too because it is a young audience that has latched onto this. I mean, like I said, the video game certainly helped, but once they do finally look at it themselves, they'll come back and say, I loved it, I want more. And so, like I said before, we wouldn't do more if we didn't feel like it was worthy, to follow that success. And I think what we're going to see is I'm hoping just another expansion. But just Turtles in general. I'll say this: there's this old saying about lightning in a bottle. I think TMNT is the ultimate lightning in a bottle because it continues to be lightning in a bottle over and over and over and over again. And what else is like that in this world? I mean, what things can you point to like Turtles that just never goes away? If anything, it's only gotten stronger and bigger.
Every new iteration is somebody's first. Those are my Turtles. Like all these kids who saw Mutant Mayhem, I was getting chills because I was like, oh man, these are these kids' new Turtles.
Oh yeah.
And so the fact that it's so many new readers and especially young readers taking up Last Ronin, and now we're going into re-evolution with the next version of Turtles, it gives me hope that there's going to be a big batch of Turtle fans that those new Turtles, Odin, Moha, Yi, and Uno, are their Turtles. Yeah. And we're going to keep going from there.
Hope so.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you all taking the time to talk to me. This was such an amazing opportunity to...
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.